Good morning, and I welcome you all to the Revit modeling webinars. So today's topic is about family creation. And before going into the project, hope all of you are doing good and stay home and stay safe. Okay, so in today's seminar, we are going to look about, or we are going to study about Revit and the families in Revit. So basically, there are three kind of families in Revit. The first one is called as system families, and they are basically, um, you know, it is specific to the Revit, or it is specific to the current project that you're working with. For example, you might have seen the elements like walls, doors, sorry, not doors, walls, floors, roof, and ceilings and all. So these kind of elements, they don't have a separate library from where I can download them or where I can load them into multiple projects or things like that. And these can be, or these are specific within the template, and you can edit them in the template. You can customize them in the template. So it's basically a system family which you can create, or not create, which you can edit, which you can control the parameters to your requirement. You can change it, and you can save it in a specific template, and this is restricted to the current projects. Okay, so next one is the loadable families. So the loadable families are basically user defined components. It is created using different templates basically. Say for example, if I want to create a window, I go choose a window template, window family template, and I start modeling my window within that. Or if I want to create a door, I need to choose the door template, and then I have to start working on that. And there are a lot of templates where I can create the both 2D as well as the 3D templates. We have both the 2D and the 3D templates by which I can create both 2D families and 3D families. So today we will be seeing about both the 2D and the 3D families in that. Okay, and the last is we have in-place families. In-place families are again user-defined components, but these are it is restricted to the current project or to the project which you are working with. And these are like for unique within the project. Some elements which you want to create and which can be used only within this particular project, which I want to customize and create it. So those kind of components or elements are called as in-place families. And for example, you can see the image which the a table with a curved table and a column on one side, and this kind of an environment. Within this kind of an environment where I have a column, I need to prepare a table, and I want to customize it to my requirement. Yes, that is done within that particular project, and I'm not going to take it and use it in different projects, because in another project I might not have the same scenario. So this is, the three different types of families. One is the system families, as I said. The second one is loadable families, which I can load it from libraries, and I'll be using it for different projects. And the third one is in-place families. In-place families I created within the current project, and it is unique, or it is something special within that particular project, and I cannot take it and use it in multiple projects, or I cannot save it out of the current project. It has to be created within the project, and it has all the features of your loadable families. So this is the overview of Revit families. So moving ahead, let's have a look at the Revit element hierarchy. So before getting into creating of families and families and components and other elements, first we need to understand how Revit defines the elements, or how it has been organized. So as you can see, there are the category, family, type, and the instance. So let's go from an instance. For example, instance is basically the element which I place within the project. For example, here I have shown you that door, which is placed within this particular project. Okay, that is the instance which is there in the project. Okay, and it's basically a representation of a type. Okay, so a type which I have within my project. So what is a type? A type is basically a representation within a family. Okay, within a family, and it has a special distinct characteristics. It has a special features from rest of the families, family elements, or rest of the types. So each type will have its own unique properties. Okay, and all these types are actually within the family. So family is basically nothing but it's a representation of your building elements, or it is a representation of how your level heads or grid heads, or the elevation arrows, the section arrows. So these kind of documentation elements, how they have to be displayed, and what should be the shape, what should be the how it has to be previewed. uh, these kind of things you can actually create it with families. Not only the 2D elements like this, but you can also create your own detailed components. When I say detailed components, when you're doing some detailing of your construction drawings, we need to add certain 2D details, which it's basically available for the 2D detailing, which we give it for the construction on site. So, so there are detail elements. There are the reference elements, and as I told you, we have the 3D model like doors, windows, columns, etc. Okay. So now all these families, an instance is basically the element which is there in the project, and that is unique or specific to that type. And type is basically some specific type within a family which has different characteristics from the other types. Okay, and family is basically it's like a grouping of 2D or 3D information. Okay, and maybe you can say this family is something referencing to your blocks in AutoCAD. Okay, so using the but I say families are more intelligent blocks than AutoCAD blocks. Okay, and these blocks, or also the family components, are basically put into certain categories. Categories are nothing but you have categorize the elements as 2D elements, 3D elements. Not like that. Maybe you can say you have annotative elements, you have reference elements, you have model objects, where you can say there are doors, windows, ceilings, stairs, railings, or all the components that is there. So this is the category. So you can see that the category is the doors. Then you have the family, which is a single door, and then you have the type where it is 36 inches by 84 inches full vision, and the instance is what I have in my project. Okay, so now let's move on. So excuse me, sorry. So basically, in families, as I told you, it is classified into distinct groupings. We call them as classes and subclasses. So here in Revit, you have elements, classes, and subclasses. So I'll tell you what elements are. So elements, when I say elements in Revit, everything is an element. So we call it as a door element, or a window element, or a wall element, a level head element. So it's everything is an element basically here. So when I say classes, classes, it's basically you have model elements or model classes. You know, that's how we say model elements, datum elements, and view specific elements. So these are basically the elements which is divided into three different classes. Okay, so these classes are further divided into, say for example, the model is actually divided into two things. One is the host and the components, and the view specific elements are further divided into two things. One is the annotations and the detail items. Okay, so now we can actually create families for all these things, all the kind of classes and the subclasses here. So coming back once again to model elements, these are three-dimensional elements which are visible in both 2D and 3D views. Okay, so these basically have both the host and the components. As I told you, the host elements are basically the building elements, which we have, or we can say the system family components are the host elements also. Say, for example, the walls, the floor, the roof, the ceiling, these are the system family elements, and these are also the host elements because they can host in objects, or they can take up the components. You can host components on them. So the components are nothing but the elements, like which are actually manufactured and brought into site, or maybe prepared somewhere else and then arranged or installed in the site. So, for example, you can see the elements marked in red. These are the elements, like the components, and the elements which you see in white are basically the host elements. So, you know, the model elements are, these are the model elements. Now, coming into the second one, which is the datum elements. Again, datum elements are 3D elements basically, but these are visible only in the 2D views. Yeah, for example, you have levels and grids, or you have references. These are elements which are basically available in 3D, but you will be able to see them only on the specific 2D views. For example, I'll be able to see the levels in an elevation or in a section view, but the same elevation levels I'll not be able to see them in the floor plans. Okay, because they are view specific, and I'll be able to see them only on the elevation views. But at the same time, a level is a 3D object basically. You can understand the level in 3 dimension also. Okay. Likewise, you have references in the sense, you know uh, it actually defines some surfaces where you can work with. For example, you have the section line, you have the call out boundary, you have the call out depth, you know the section depth, the elevation views. These are basically references which have, or which defines your work surfaces or workspace or the work plane where I can start working on it. And these again are specific to that particular, or it is again referencing that only in that particular 2D views. Okay. But these are basically 3D elements. Okay. So this is about the datum elements, and coming into the next topic, that is, or the next element, which is your annotation elements, as we saw. These are basically 2D elements. Some can be seen in 3D views also, but mostly these are 2D elements, and they are specific to that current 2D view alone. So these are called as annotations and detail items. When I say annotations, it's basically your 2D annotation details, like the text and dimensions. So these are the annotations. And when I say detail items, these are like documentation elements, or detail elements, detail components, 2D modeling components. So 2D drafting components, I would say, rather than modeling components, which can be used to overlay the model elements, or in your you want to get an enlarged detail, and you want to detail it out and all in some specific areas. Yes, you have certain detail items which you can actually incorporate within that and enhance your view or detail out your view. Okay, so this is about annotation elements. Um, So, in loadable families, I would like to say this as the you know an anatomy of the family view, or the family, I would say. So, if you compare it with the human anatomy and the family anatomy, here we have, in human anatomy we have bones, muscles, skin, and nerves, and there are a lot of things. Okay, I just taken a couple of things here. So the bones basically, our bones, how it functions, it's something similar to that as your reference planes and reference lines in Revit. Okay, and like our muscles, we have the parameters in Revit. Parameters be basically they control the logical or the mathematical expressions to define the characteristics. Okay, then you have the skin. The outer skin is basically the it's either a solid form or a void form. Okay, either you have a you know so here it's basically the forms. Okay, the skin is basically the forms here. Okay, and nerves, yes, I would say it is mostly, I would compare them with the MEB connectors. It's basically the intelligent link connecting between, one point to another and things like that. So this is about the anatomy of your family components, especially the model families. So when you're creating a loadable model families, what you should consider is which category will the family represent. The first thing is the categories, then what should be the subcategory of it. Okay, how many types you need, that's basically the sizes or the options. Do you need a host? Okay, do you want to place your family on a wall or a floor, or maybe you want to attach it to a roof. That is the host. So, what is going to be the base point or the reference point by which your element is going to be, or the family is going to be put into your project, or the insertion point, basically? Okay. So, how will the family be seen in different views or in different detail level? You have you know, a coarse detail level, a medium detail level, and a fine detail level, and at each level, how this family element is going to be displayed. Okay. And not only that, how it is going to be displayed in different view direction, whether it's a 2D view or whether it's a 2D family or a 3D element. So if in case it's a 3D, will it need materials? No, and then what kind of materials, or is it going to be controlled within the project, or it's going to be predefined? Uh, so then finally, family parameters. What are the different types of parameters that we have within that family? And will they be appearing in your schedules and tags? So these are some of the considerations which you have to have when creating a family. And when we are talking about parameters, yes, you might have attended the different parameter types. The session on different parameters and all earlier. So here again, I'm just an overview of that. So we have the system parameter, the family parameter, the project, and the shared parameters. So so you need to be very careful about using these parameters and how it is going to come. So basically, system parameter is defined inside every family, and these parameters you don't need to worry about because it's already there. That's the system parameter. Then you have the family parameter. Yes, as we know, family parameters cannot appear in the schedules and tags. Family parameters, but they are inside this family, and but they will not be seen in the schedules and tags. Then we have the project parameter, which can appear in schedule but not in the tags. Okay, and these are also, again, it is also inside your family, and sorry, the inside the project, and they are fixed to that particular project. And then you have the shared parameter. Shared parameter is an basically an external text file which you can link to your current families and projects, and you'll be able to see them or the features which is available in that. You can actually pull them into your schedules and tags. So this is the parameter types. Okay, so before going into the next, let me just quickly show you how the families function and how it is going to work with. Now let's start with a basically with a 2D family. So let's say I want to create and or work with or maybe I'll just open the sample project here where I just show you how when I update certain things in my family or when I create it in my family and use it here, how it is going to change. So let's see how the elevations are looking like. Let me just open an elevation view. Okay, so I have a very good elevation view here. Now you can see that only problem is my level lines. Yes, I want to change them because I don't want them to look so big. Maybe I want to have a different type of levels, the level heads and the text and other things. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go with my application menu here where I'll start with the new and I'll say I want to create a family. So I can go into say family and then from there I'll be able to choose from here what type of family that I'm going to create. I can choose the template based on that and then I can start working on it. Now I know that I'm going to create a level head, so what I can do is I can directly go and say I want to create a new annotation symbol. And it takes me directly into my annotations where I have excuse me, sorry about that. I have my metric callout details, or sorry, callout head template. I have the level head template, the grid head template. Yes, I'll be able to create any of these here. Now let's open my level head here. Okay, so this is basically a 2D family template, and you can see that you don't have much of tools available. The ribbon bar itself is totally it's moved to the family environment, and you can see that you have create, insert, and the basic things like view, manage, and modify, things like that. And you have in your views you can see that you'll be having only one particular view, so you don't have a lot of other views. You don't have the floor plan, ceiling plan kind of thing. And as I told you, there are a couple of bones here. You can see that you have your reference plane. Okay, and there is a note and some indications here saying that how the level line is going to work and what is this reference to. Okay, so now let's start working with this. Okay, I know my level line is going to end at this point and my level symbol has to start here. Now, in my elevation, I can see that it's a pretty big symbol. I don't want it to be of that particular size. Maybe I want to create it in a smaller one with a different text. So I'll go with my create tab. In my create tab, I'll go with my lines. Let me choose maybe a inscribe polygon, and I would say I want to have three sides, and I'll just create a polygon which has a radius of uh, 2.5, so that's 5 mm. So now I'll just move this element and put it up here. No, yeah, this is okay. And now let's say I want this to be my you know datum symbol, and I want to create a fill region for that. Maybe I want to create a solid filling within that, or maybe on a triangular portion here. So fill region, once again, I'll go say pick lines. This time I would lock my elements. Okay. Now let's say corner trim. So the corner trim, I will just trimming this area and say finish the fill region. Yes. Okay. Now this is okay. So now let's say this is my symbol, level head symbol. Instead of this, I'm having this. I don't know. Maybe once we place it, the total height it says 3.7. Okay, now let's see. And now what I want is I want to have as in my existing, I need to know the level name and the elevation value. So here to do that, you have an option called as label. Labels are basically uh, you know like your barcode strips. So when you prepare a label in the family and you take it into your project, it automatically reads the data from the project elements and it displays them in the label instead of that label. So the label is basically something which is relevant to your or similar to your barcode strips, what you see. Okay, so the barcode strips are nothing but it takes in some when I go to shopping and I see a barcode strip in any of my element, I know that. So when it is shown, it displays the product, the cost, and things like that. So likewise, in Revit, the label functions here. In Revit families, the labels are similar to that. Okay, so let me go and say I want to create a label, and you can see that there is a label with 3 mm. Now maybe I can duplicate that. Say edit, duplicate. I want that to be 2 mm. Okay, and yeah, that yes, here I have it. I have it as 2 mm, and maybe I want to have a Arial narrow, which I want that to be italic. Okay, so that's it then. Now I want to place the elevation name or the level name, as we call it, not the elevation name, the level name. Okay, so here I would say I want to align it to the right and I want it to be aligned to the bottom. So now let me just pick at the point here and say I want the name of my level. Then say, okay, so this goes in this way. Okay, now let's go back to this and say right and top, and I would align it here and say this time I want the elevation to be this way. Yes. So you can see that you have prepared a couple of labels. One is the name for the name and second one is for the elevation value. And as it is says, I don't need these dummy line and this note. Now let me just zoom to this area. Say I want to save this. Let's say save as a family, and maybe I just want to put it in some family creation. So I'll say level. Now I would load it into my project. Okay, so so now I know that it's loaded into the project. When I go select this, it shows me that this is a 8 mm level head, and I don't have any other elements here. So if I have to know whether it is loaded, maybe I can just go and click on my families here, and then my annotation symbols, and then my you can see that the LVL head which I created is okay. That means it's loaded into into my current project. Okay, so all I need to do is I need to update them here. So, but to update them here, you don't have them in your type selector, right? So the best thing to do is just select the existing level, go say edit type, you duplicate that. Maybe I'll call this as my triangle. Okay, and in this triangle, I can say I want to have a line weight of 1, and maybe the color I want that to be in gray color, and the line pattern, yes, I want the line pattern to be dot 1 mm. And yeah, I have this symbol here where instead of the level head, I have the LVL head. And Okay, I would say okay here. Right. Now you can see that your level head is now updated. Okay. Now just quickly select all other levels. Maybe you can say select all instance, and now you can change them to triangle, and you can see that it's automatically updated this view, not only in this view, and all your elevations. It's now updated. So this, you can see that as your 2D families. Okay. So hope you're clear with this. Now let's move ahead. Let's say I want to create 3D families. Maybe I want to create a door. Okay. So as I have already suggested in my presentation, so you need to understand, you know, you need to consider these things. What category it is going to be? What is the subcategory? How many types you need? What is the host? Does it have a host? Where is the insertion point? Maybe what detail level it should be seen with, how it has to be displayed in each views, like what are the materials, all these things. So let's quickly go into and say we want to create a door family. So now let's move ahead here. Let's say I want to create a new family element, and I choose my door, and I would say okay. Now this is a 3D family file, and you can see that you have different views which is available here, like the floor plan, the ceiling, the 3D, and the elevations. Okay, and sorry, excuse me. And you can see that you have the menus based on this 3D family creation. So you have forms where you have extrusion, blend, revolve, sweep, and swept blend. So extrusion is basically, it's a shape which is extruded in the uh, per, perpendicular direction of the profile which you have drawn. Second one is blend, where you have two different profiles which are merged to form a single unique shape of solid. And third one is revolve. Any profile you have, it can be revolved around certain axis, and you get the revolved surfaces or the 3D elements. Then you have the sweep. Sweep is basically a profile which is going to run along a 2D path, or maybe a 3D path also. So that is sweep. And the last is swept blend. It's basically the combination of sweep and blend. In sweep, we know that it has a path which it has to follow, and then blend, it has two different profiles. Now, merging these two, let's call as swept blend. It has a path, a single segment path, and two different profiles. One profile at the start, one profile at the end. Now, these are the basic uh, family models, or we can say the forms that we can create. Which these are the different methods by which I can create forms to use in my project, sorry, in my family basically. And similar way, you have the voids also. Voids are basically again the same way, like your forms, or the solid forms. You can see that. So using these two, the solid forms and the void forms, we are going to create the different 3D components here. And I would go with the easiest ones now, because I don't want to get into more of detailing and complicating it. So let's start with the door, and so that's why I've selected a door family template, and I'm in my reference level view. That's basically the floor plan view. Now you can see that there are a couple of reference planes. You can see that you have a reference plane for which is the center for left and right, and then you have another reference plane here, which is basically the center for front and back. Okay, so then you have a reference plane here which defines your exterior side. Yeah, okay, this is the reference plane which defines the exterior side, and then you have another reference plane here. Again, this defines the interior basically. Okay, now you can see the reference planes here and the reference planes here. Now you can see that there are certain muscles or the the parameters which is here. Like you can see that you have the basic width parameter, and maybe in your elevation, if you see that, maybe in an exterior elevation, yeah, the height is mentioned. Okay, so that means these are some system parameters which is predefined. Okay, and which appears in both schedules and tags. Now I need to start working with my component now. Now let's start with the frame of the door first. To create that, what I need is I need the frame to run on all the three sides here. Now what you see here is not the frame. This is basically the architrave. Okay. So now let's say I want to have a frame running on all the three sides here, and it has to be on the exteriors. Okay, so what I will do is I'll go into my reference plan views, where I would say I want to sketch or I want to create the frame using a sweep, because it has to run on the three sides. Okay, and it has to profile has to follow along a path. Okay, and that path is going to be on the three sides of my door. So let's say I want to create a sweep. So here it prompts me to sketch a path or pick a path. Now I just need to say or let me just quickly go into the elevation view, the exterior view. I would say sketch path, and I would say pick lines. I will choose one. Uh, Again, this one. While creating these, the best thing is to keep it locked so that whenever these reference planes move, whenever the bones move, the muscle, the other elements has to move along with it. So the muscle cannot move separately and the bone cannot move separately. So here again, the reference plane is a bone, right? So that is how I define this reference plane. So when the bones move, your ultimately your the muscle, the nerves, the skin, everything moves along with it. Fine. So now I have just locked my model or the form to the or the skin to the bone here. I referenced them. I created a relationship between them. Now let's go use my corner trim to trim this and use a multiple element trimmer extent to stop it at this height. Now I know that this is the path where the the profile, the frame profile is going to run, and you can see that since it's a sweep, it highlights a specific reference plane where I need to sketch the profile. Okay, so let's say I want to finish the path mode. I have sketched the path. Now you can see that the profile gets highlighted. Okay, you can see that now it says select profile, edit profile, or load profile. Now I know that I'm going to click on select profile, and that highlights this particular profile here. And I would say I want to edit the profile. When I go and say edit profile, it prompts me from which particular view you're going to edit this profile. I would prefer to edit from my floor plan view. That is my reference plan view or the reference level. So once I open that, I'll be able to see the reference plane or the reference plane created by sweep, and that is getting highlighted at this point here. Okay, so once again, let me start with pick lines with the lock, and I would go to this and this. Now, let me say I want to have this corners trimmed. Okay, let me just quickly go into this. Say I want to have a frame. Maybe this is 100 here. Maybe another 100 here. Now let's say this has to be 75. Okay, let's use a corner trim once again. So let me just. Or the best thing is you can actually give any type of dimensions here. Maybe I would say this is 3 inches. Sorry, 3 inches, and I would want this to be 4 inches here. So now this is the exterior side. Now I want the door to be opening on the inner side. So I need to have the stopper at this side. So let's say I'll go with uh, 1.5 inch offset here and 1 inch offset from here. Now I'll just go once again to my corner trim. Say I want to create a trim. Okay, so this is the profile, the frame profile. Now I want this frame profile to run on all the three sides. So I'll say finish the profile and then say finish sketch. Now before finishing the sketch, yes, I can also define the materials and other things here for this. So for the 3D elements which I'm creating. So let's say I want to finish the sketch first. Now you can see that it runs on both the sides, or in my 3D view, I know that it runs like something like this. Okay, so let's go back to my reference level and see that now this is how it looks like, and in my view, okay, this is how it is. Okay, if this is actually the interior view and the exterior side, yes, okay. So this is how it looks. Let's go. Okay, now I need to select this here and I can create a material parameter, the material as a parameter. So I'll just click on this, family editors, associate family parameter here and say the parameter which I'm going to create is a new one. And this is basically a family parameter. Or how do you want to define that? Maybe you want that to be a family parameter or a shared parameter. What is that you want to specify? Now, I would say I want this to be called as my frame material. So I would just say frame for now, just referencing name and say okay, right? So now I know that the frame is done. Okay. In case you want to edit the sweep, you can select it at any time and you can say edit sweep. Now, if I want to control the display of these elements, yes, you have the visibility settings here. So you can go into visibility settings where you can say how this element has to be displayed and what views it has to be displayed and what is the level of detailing it has to be displayed with. Now, you can play around with that. For now, I'm not going to get into much of that. I'm just quickly going to create the door, and so we can just move ahead and see how it is going to function. So just giving you some gist of what are the things which is available. Now, not only that, you have the forms as we were discussing. We have model lines. You have you'll be having some symbolic lines here by which you can represent different things here. For example, using a symbolic line, I can define the door or the doors in 2D views in the plan views or 3D views. So there is an elevation swing projection or how it is elevation swing is seen. you have the you'll be having the plan swing here. So where I can show the swing of the door using an arc, right? So that can be done. Okay, let me just quickly go into my view. I know that I have created the frame. Now I need to create the the shutter here, the door shutter. Now I'll just go and say I want to create an extrusion once again. This time I'm going to say set work plane. So the set work plane is something like your UCS in AutoCAD. UCS is nothing but you can specify in which work plane you want to work with, and you can set to that. Now here I can just go pick that plane. So you have three different options to do it. Either if the reference planes are already there, you can just quickly go and select their names, or you can pick a plane and you can say where it has to be attached with, or to which plane it has to be attached with. And the third option is if you have any 2D lines which is already created on that particular plane, you can select those lines, and keeping that as reference, you can start sketching on the new phases. Okay, this is a bit complicated feature. Now let's say to work with, I would either go with name or the pickup lane, which would be more easier to work with. So now I'd start working with pickup lane and say okay. Now let's move into this and say yes, I want to sketch on this phase on the reference of my sweep. I want to define this as my reference. So now it is asking from which particular elevation you want to sketch this, either on the exterior view or the interior view. Uh, yeah, let's go with the interior view, because that's where I'll be able to see the stopper and other things. Or in my exterior view, I have to use hidden lines, wire, maybe the wireframe features or not. Now let's just quickly go with my interior elevation view. So I know that this is my the architraves. These are my frames which I have created now using the sweep. Now I need to know where I'm going to sketch. So if I just click on the show, it shows okay, this is the plane which you have specified or selected. And maybe in your 3D views, if you see that, you can see the plane is actually on the face of the stopper. Okay, that's pretty much correct location. Okay, let me just say I don't want to see the frame for now. Okay, now I'm in my extrusion. I'm creating my extrusion element or solid element. Now I would go with rectangle, and let's say I want to create the rectangle from this point here to this point, and I'm going to lock all the four sides, because okay, this is locked. Fine. I'll say I want to finish this. Now, in my reference level, if I come back to my reference level, you can see that now the depth of this is pretty big, because it goes for the star, to 250 depth, which I don't want. I want that to be exactly for 1.5 inches. Okay, and you can see that your doors shutter is there. Okay, so when I see in my 3D view, I have the door shutter here and the door frame. Okay, now I'll select the door shutter. Once again, I'll say I want to create a material. Okay, this time I want this to be called as shutter material. It has to be grouped under, you can see that it's a common parameter. It's a material parameter, and it is going to be grouped under materials and finishes. So let me say it has to be a type parameter or instant parameter. Yes, I can specify that. Let it be a type parameter for now. I would say okay. And the frame parameter here is already there. Okay. So you have both the parameters created. You have the frame parameter, and then you have the sorry, the frame parameter and the shutter parameter. Now we need to work around, or we need to play around with, the types. I have created this door. Maybe let's say if I want to add a handle or things like that, and if I have created them as a separate family, I'll be able to load that element. Maybe I can say if I can load. I don't know whether I have door handle hardware here. Okay, I want to use this. Uh, let's select this one because it's on both the sides. Okay, so you can just see that how it is there. Now I'll go into my reference plane. I know that this is the exterior and interior. So now the door is going to open on the interior. So I need to place it here. So I would select this, and you can see that it has some standard features. Let's see in the view where it is placed. Okay, now I know that it's placed in the base here. Now I can choose this over that. I can say from the base reference to this, I can create, and from this reference to this reference, I can create. So, I can create these as parameters here. So I'll just select this one. So I want to create this as a mm, handle x value. Okay. I would say this, I want to create it as a parameter once again. And I want this to be called as my handle y parameter. Okay, this thing. Now, when I go into my family types here, you can see that I have the material and finishes parameter. I have the handle parameters, which is here. Maybe I can say this has to be 250 and this one I want that to be at exactly half of the height. So what I can do is I can create it as a parameter here, or maybe using a formula here. I can create it using a formula here in this. So for the formula, what I will do is as I know, I want it half of the height. So this should be equal to height, the height which is there, or I can just quickly copy this height and say this is going to be height divided by 2. So that's it. Apply. Okay. Now that's how you place this. Sorry. Now you can see that in your view. Now let's quickly go and see how to define different types. Okay. So let's say this is my door which I have created. Now I need to create different types here. So when I go into family types, you can see that there are different sizes, there are different things here. Now I'm going to create a new type, which is type 1. Maybe I can say I want this to be called as my 0.9 meter by 2.1 meter door. So this door is going to have a width of 0.9 meter and the height of 2.1 meter. So let's say apply, say okay. So this is type 1. Okay. Now I'll say I want to create another type. I'll just go and say I want to create a new type. Now this new type is, I want this to be like 1 point, oh, okay, 1 meter into 2.1 meter. Now I would say this is the width is 1 meter here and say apply. So that's the type 2. And now let's say I want to create the type 3. Here I want the type 3 to be 1.2 meter by 2.1 meter. So now let's say the width is going to be 1.2 meter. Okay, say apply. Okay. Now I have three different types with me. Now let me say I want to save this as a door family. Okay, uh, door. Okay. Now I'll just quickly go into a new project. Okay, I'll go with an architectural project. Now let's say I want to load this door into my project. Okay, and yes, I have. You can see that I have the three types. Now the best thing is when I have a wall, I'm just roughly creating a wall here. Okay, I want this wall to be first. Then I'll go with my door. Yes, I have the type 1, the type 2, and the type 3. Now, here you see that you have your flip hinges and flip swing. You have them here. You can actually control. But again, since these are the elements which we created, we didn't add any symbolic representations or things like that. And you can see that now my positioning of my element is not correct, so it's a little bit changed here. So that's okay. So maybe I need to edit them in my placement here. Okay, we'll do that later. But hope you understood this. So and you can also add the symbolic representations instead of seeing the actual 3D elements here. You can add symbolic representations, and you can see that there are certain parameters uh, like your floor material, sorry, the frame material and shutter material, which are restricted to the which are restricted to the type. So if I select it and define some values here, this is for this particular type. And for the other types, it doesn't update because that's a different type of family. So as you know, this is your instance, and or this is the final form or the skin, however you want to say. You can see that. So this basically are the parameters or the muscles, and you can see that in that you have the type, the instance, the type, and then it has a family, and that family is actually categorized into something called a store. So this is about how family works, and this is the how you create a 2D and a 3D family. Hope this session was good. If there are any questions, kindly put your questions. You know, we'll be able to get back to you on that. And once again, thank you. And here you can take a note of my number here. So you can just get in touch with me directly so that in case you have any questions or any doubts on family creations or creating parametric families or having more conceptual parametric families, yes, I'm open to all that. And thank you once again for joining with me on this session. This is Vimal. Thank you.